tips to kickstart your day. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
13 minutes past 6 Central African time. Let's now take a look at some stories making headlines in West Africa. We speak to political analyst and conflict resolution expert, Dr. David Matsanga. Dr. Matsanga, how are you on this Wednesday? It's a new month. Dr. Matsanga, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. How are you on this Wednesday? We've just started a new month. How are you feeling?
I'm okay. I've been okay for a long time, and I'll continue to be okay. My
That's
sister.
Great. That's great. Today, for our West Africa wrap, let's start with France returning a military base to Senegal. Senegal's president, Bassirou Diomaye Faye, said last year that France would have to close its military bases in Senegal by 2025. Why are French troops withdrawing from Senegal?
First of all, I don't know whether you are hearing me properly.
I can hear you, yes.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank the president of Senegal for pushing for French's withdrawal and the removal of their base from Senegal. It is one of the reminders of colonial vestige that remains on the continent of Africa. And therefore, their withdrawal makes it freedom-free. After 67 years of independence, we want to start a new chapter. And Africa is doing the best to make sure that it shakes off all colonial ties that are not very good in line with our development currently. So the move by President of Senegal and the government of Senegal to take, and France to take away their base is welcome, and I want to encourage them to do it faster, quickly, give them time to leave immediately and go back to where they belong.
What will this move mean for those Senegalese that are working for French troops?
The Senegalese that are working for the French can get assimilated into other duties. It doesn't mean that it is only that place where employment can be got. What the Senegalese government can do is to try and get as many people or take their military back to that same place, create employment, create industries. You can build industries out of those bases where they had infrastructure, roads, schools, whatever it is. You can utilize those things and create new initiatives, an African initiative, other than having a colonial man who butchered you, slaughtered you, and having a base in your country. That is not the way things should work.
New debt fears have been raised in Senegal, meanwhile. How much has the government debt risen by, and what does this mean?
Debts have risen everywhere across Africa. On the African continent, almost every country has got a problem with debt, not only in Senegal. But the Senegalese, of course, you see, for almost 400 years, France has been milking these West African states. It proves my theory, which I have been telling you, that you look at the milking. If you say the debt has risen because France is pulling out, then it means France was not doing anything to change the livelihoods of the people of Senegal or West African states where they have occupied for the 400 years that they have been on that coast. So for me, Africa should go back to renaissance. All the entire Africa, not only Senegal. If you want to get rid of this debt is where we have been captured, where we have been manipulated by the foreign countries' external forces. They say you have this debt. If you leave, we shall tell you to pay this. We shall tell you, pay us now, or we do something against you, or we send a military to overthrow you. So these are some of the things that Africa should look at how to restructure their debts, how to tell the world that we shall pay, but give us time to this level. I am not surprised that it is coming now when they say they are pulling out their troops and they are going home, and then they raise the issue of debt.
Will the IMF or the International Monetary Fund inject more funding into the country, and what conditions could that have?
IMF always comes with hop, step, and a jump retreat policy. If you look at all countries where IMF has gone, there has been a military coup, uprisings, protests. You know very well that most of the countries in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s, they had demonstrations, strikes, army coming in because IMF has given them structural readjustments. They say you sack so many policemen, sack the army, reduce the teachers, reduce civil servants, reduce this. And the people you are throwing out of jobs go back to ferment opposition against the government, have conflict against the government. So the IMF always comes in, the World Bank comes in. And remember, these institutions are not our institutions. They are not African institutions. These institutions are Brentwood institutions in the West, manned by America, which actually has the biggest number of shares in these institutions. We don't have our own money. It is, again, a problem comes to us Africans. Why, after 67 years of independence, we don't have our own bank as Africans? Yet we have a lot of money, we have a lot of resources. We bank this money in Dubai, in Qatar, in London, in Switzerland. We don't want to bank it on the African continent. That's why African Union should be reformed to have its own bank that can assist directly countries like Senegal, countries like those Ghana that fall under pay, they fail to pay. Africa should have that sovereign bond that should be there to help African countries.
Let's move to Liberia now, Dr. Katsanga. The former president in Liberia who was killed in a coup gets a state funeral. This after 45 years that former President William Tolbert was murdered. Why did it take this long for him to get a state funeral?
William Tolbert was assassinated by Sergeant Doe, one of the youngest officers who was also equally assassinated, killed. Actually, he was more tortured than the way he killed Tolbert. I was in Liberia. I followed the story when I was still working with Sky News. And I followed the story as an African consultant. William Tolbert was murdered in cold blood. And his grave was not known where it was. People threw it. This is a man who fought for the independence of this, kept this country very peaceful, and other African countries went into turmoil. So the befitting burial is to what we call redemption strategy. When you bury, honor, restitute, reparate, that's what is lacking in Africa. Some African countries are going to chaos because they don't restitute. You don't honor, you don't account, you don't tell the truth. In South Africa, you told the truth-telling GRC Commission. And you see how the rainbow country came out. Mandela did not come out to retribute. Retributive justice is what is killing Africa. So this honor in Liberia teaches us a lesson, my sister, that even if he's dead, he must be honored. He played a part in the stability of Liberia. I am happy with that.
What legacy does Tolbert's 9-year presidency leave behind for the people of Liberia? You speak about him having achieved stability for the country.
It was a peaceful nation. Remember, Liberia was a free state for slaves, free slaves who came back, some from Caribbean, some from America, some from all those who did not manage to cross the Atlantic Ocean. It was one of the countries on the continent of Africa where a territory which was carved, and they started agitating for their own way democracy, put up levels of democracy. He left a legacy of a democratic Liberia. He left a legacy of a stable, steady Liberia, which was disrupted after his military coup of Sergeant Doe. He was killed, murdered in cold blood. Things started going wrong. And you have seen in Liberia, we ended up by having Taylor, who later on took over and also captured Taylor's men and other several factions that I cannot mention for the sake of time here.
Yeah.
Other factions in Liberia came up, fought, and a civil war broke out after the death. The blood of Tolbert brought chaos, just haunted Sergeant Doe, haunted Liberian leader Taylor, who is serving 54 years in jail. I think he has served, we are cut to 27. He has served some of the years in jail in Belmarsh in London after the tribunal of Sierra Leone and found him guilty of offenses, which is a colonial tribunal, which I don't believe in, which is it does not heal. So his legacy was the best legacy so far in Liberian history. And you can see up to today, Liberia changes governments without bloodshed, which is very, very good for us to learn from in Africa.
Let's move to Niger now, where it's a study has found that instability in the country is threatening Chinese investments. What are the main findings of this report?
This is a correct report. Although it is mentioning Chinese investment, I think China has also come now to realize that human rights records, bad human rights can cause instability, and you cannot have any mining, any investment to carry in Nigeria. In a nutshell, Nigeria is a dead country. It's finished. It has remained a geopolitical situation with few areas, few sectors functioning properly. Security has collapsed in Nigeria. The security situation is very worse. Abduction, kidnap, terrorists in Boko Haram in northeast of the area, Maiduguri area, the Borno State, Kaduna, herdsmen, Fulani herdsmen with cows moving down to areas of productivity, Benue State, Plateau, the belt, coming down towards the Biafran issue, the farm area where they are killing people, taking over their farms, their properties. So no investor would like to invest in Nigeria, given that there is such insecurity. So people are leaving. That report is 100%. It has threatened out. People are going to run out. I have taken the case to the African Court of Human Rights in Banjul, and I am placing even more emphasis to the African Court in Arusha for Nigerian government, Antonio General, to come and face me, to tell me why he has left injustices, he has left human rights abuses being conducted on the soil of Nigeria by the security agencies, by terrorists, by bandits, by kidnappers. We have lost 3/4 of girls. Our younger girls have been abducted into terrorism. And we are keeping quiet as Africans. Me, I have not kept quiet. I've taken this matter before the judges. The 11 judges in Arusha will come. Even if Nigeria does not come, at one point, they will summon them. They will be forced to come out and explain why a country and the investment is running away.
Let's go to Togo now, where at least 7 people are reported to have been killed. We saw protests there unraveling against the government and their new constitutional reforms. Can we expect this figure to rise? Reports are saying it's preliminary reports.
It is going to rise. It is sad again. Part of what is killing Africa is constitutionalism. You make a constitution, then you shrink it. The shrinkage of constitutionalism. Togo was doing very well. The current president changed the constitution to something, to have a parliamentary system instead of the American system of presidential. The worst thing that he did is also to say, once I change this, I start being the one, because as if the other one, he was not there. That is where the rubber has made the metal. That's why the fight is on right now.
So you do believe that this new constitutional reform is an attempt?
There is quite a lot of difficulties that we see.
Yeah.
And more people are going to be killed. More people are going to die because of the protests that are taking place in that.
So, Dr. Katsanga, you do believe that Nasigbe is making an attempt with these reforms to remain in power for as long as he wants?
He's making, of course, that's why I've told you that as soon as he changed the constitution, my sister, he became the first one to use the constitution to extend himself by another 7 years. That's why the protests have triggered. That's why the opposition is saying, hello, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You change the constitution.
We're going to have to leave it there for today, Dr. Katsanga, because we're completely out of time. But yeah, thank you so much again for joining us, and you do have a great rest of your Wednesday. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
my sister, thank you. God bless you. And I hope we meet again next Wednesday.
Yes.
When we have time and plenty of it. But that is what Africa is. And thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I hope next week we get to touch on Nigeria's billionaire businessman Aliko Dangote entering into plans to help Africa produce its own fertilizer.
Dangote is a great darling of mine.
Yes.
I like the way he does his things, and I let him keep going. But the problem is that he's doing it in a pariah, almost a rogue system.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't touch on that well today, but let's see if we can
Nigeria.
next week. Thanks, Dr. David Matsaka is a political analyst and a conflict resolution expert discussing stories making headlines in West Africa. 31 minutes past 6 Central African time. Let's say good morning to Onel Nzinzi with the news headlines.
SABC